We're backstage in Star Dressing Room number 1 with Katie Melua. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm really good because I'm talking to you. And everybody wants to talk to you now, don't they? You're the biggest thing in music.
I don't know about that. I mean, it is pretty amazing what's happened over the last 3 years. And I'm kind of glad to be making music and people going out and buying my records. But I don't know if everyone wants to talk to me. That's a bit of a bizarre statement to make.
Well, it seems to me they do, because to get this interview, you have to put an application in, basically, and you have to beg and plead and try and get time with you. And there's a lot of people asking for you because you've created something that's so different for someone your age, really. It's kind of a unique sound, isn't it?
I suppose so. Really, all I've ever been interested in is, when I've listened to certain artists when I was younger, certain musicians, and the way they made me feel deep inside, particularly artists from a different generation, older artists. I just kind of wanted to recreate that. I wanted to recreate that feeling. I thought, God, if my music could do 10% of what their music has done to me as a listener, to my own listeners, I would die a happy person. So it's pretty incredible to be making music, yeah.
Why you?
Why me? In what sense?
Well, why are you the one sat here and not somebody else down the street or somebody else from another country? Why you?
Who knows? I mean, I'm sure an element of it has to do with luck. I probably wouldn't be standing here if my dad hadn't got a job as a doctor and moved to Belfast from Georgia in Eastern Europe. So, of course, a lot of it has to do with luck. But I suppose I would like to think, I'm a bit naive in that I still think you could have all the luck in the world, but if you don't have the talent and if you don't have good songs and if you don't have passion for what you do, then you probably won't make it.
We're going to talk about your life and your career. I mean, you're still incredibly young, 21 years old, and you're selling out the biggest arenas in the country. The first question I've got to ask you is the pressure. When all this is going on around you, today we're backstage at a theatre waiting for you to go on and entertain 4,000 people. What pressure is on you to be the biggest star? I mean, how can you keep a level head when you've got all this going on around you, all these hundreds of people pandering to you and putting this big show on?
Well, to be honest, I don't really think of it that way. I mean, the way you've just put it does make it sound, horrifying, but it's actually really great. I mean, it's really chilled out. Everyone I work with is absolutely amazing. They're all really chilled out too. I mean, they're all working very, very hard, and the band and me, we all work very hard. But at the end of the day, we know people have come to enjoy themselves, and we'll just play some tunes and hopefully they'll enjoy themselves. You can't go around thinking, oh my God, all this pressure, because if you start worrying about little things like that, I know it sounds silly to say it, but tomorrow, a meteorite could hit the planet and you worrying would have done absolutely nothing, so there's no point worrying about it. So I think it's good to just enjoy life.
Isn't it tempting, though, to request a lemur and an ice cream machine and the most ridiculous things just because you can?
Not really. I think if I was dared by a mate just for a laugh, perhaps, but I wouldn't really request it because it would just be pointless, really. Unless I had an urgent need for it suddenly.
All right, we're going to take another piece of music and then we'll start at the beginning and find out about your upbringing and, as you say, your beginnings in Eastern Europe and then moving to Belfast, and then these 2 albums that have sold millions and millions of copies around the world. So of all of them, which is your second favourite? Because we're going to play the most favourites at the end. Which is the one you'd like to play next?
I suppose I'd say maybe Piece by Piece. That's one I wrote about a year ago. And it's a song about just dealing with breaking up with someone.
What kind of pressure was on you for that album? Because they always say the second's the most difficult. You can have a hit with one album and then you've got to come back and do something better because they remember the first more fondly than maybe it even is.
Well, there's an element of that, and you've got to remember that. I mean, for me, obviously the pressure was there, and there were times when I was just like, oh my God, I can't get to sleep, worrying about it. But all that worry had to sort of stop at the studio door. I wanted to go in there and make the best album that I could. You can't worry about your audience or think about who's going to buy the record. You've just got to make what's honest and what comes out of you in the most true sense. I did kind of feel that 2 years ago when we made Call Off the Search, actually 3 years ago when we made Call Off the Search, I was really still starting out. And in those 2 years, I've taught so much, and I think just grown up and developed a lot in, I hope in every sense. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best now, but I think there's still, a lot of things to get better at, but I'm a bit further down the line. So I wasn't too worried about it. I mean, it was just a case of going in the studio and recording all the maturity that had occurred in the last 2 years, not just in me, but between me and the band, and between me and Mike Batt, my producer.
It must be interesting as an artist to look back on an album, because you must feel like you could have done the first tracks better now if you'd have re-released them today. How is that when something is made and that's it, it's going to be played on the radio forever?
Well, you've just got to live with it. I mean, they say sometimes the best sign of a great songwriter or a great artist is when they know to say stop, when they know it's time to stop writing the song or stop recording the song. It is tough. I mean, yeah, I always have that problem sort of 6 months down the line. I think, oh God, I could have done that so much better. But I think, songs are kind of, and recordings are supposed to capture a moment and capture a piece of music at a certain age and a certain time, a certain place where your head is. And it's an instant thing that has to be caught, and it can't be something, once it's captured, it's there, and you just live with it. And the flaws that it has can sometimes be a good thing.
All right, let's talk about your beginnings now, because you were born in Georgia in Eastern Europe, as you said. What was life like there for a start? Presumably completely different to life over here, is it?
It is. I mean, I was there just towards the end of the Soviet Union, and then during the breakup, and so Georgia's independence, and we had a civil war. It was quite tough. I mean, the quality of life there, definitely 10 years ago, was nowhere near to what it is like in the West. And I don't know, I think, it was quite hard, but I still had the most amazing childhood there. I mean, I love that country and I'll always go back to it. And, all my friends are still there, all my grandparents are still there. So, it's very different to here. But I think when people face hardships, I think they still try and lead a normal life. They still, have a laugh and dance and sing and things like that, which is really good.
Were you a musical child? Were you always singing and always wanted to be the star, or were you just quiet and unassuming?
I was quite a shy person, but I did like singing. I mean, a lot of Georgians sing. They're all in the arts. So I did love singing. I did used to put on plays for my parents. I think I was just another kid putting on another play, to be honest.
So you weren't really told, oh, you're going to be the next big thing, or you didn't have anybody as a child around you saying, oh my God, Katie's so talented? No,
not really. I think maybe that was probably why I never thought I would, you could realistically be someone famous. I mean, the thing is also, you live in Georgia and that kind of dream is almost non-existent. I suppose coming to Belfast, I was still quite a serious person. I didn't think it was realistic enough. But I think it was when I turned 15, 16 that I suddenly discovered all these artists, particularly from the older generation I was talking about earlier, who just inspired me so much. And at the same time I also started writing, and that together made me want to do music as a career. I kind of didn't care at that stage whether I was going to make it or not. I just wanted to do it no matter what.
So you moved to Belfast aged 8, I think it was, which is still quite young. Your father was a heart surgeon. Mm-hmm. How do they feel about you just singing songs for a living?
They're really happy for me. I mean, it's pretty incredible. They're bloody surprised, but just really excited. And they've always been very supportive. They never kind of told me to go into, the medicine or anything like that.
How different was going from Eastern Europe to Belfast? I mean, what were the social differences? How did you fit in?
It was, well, you go from a place you know very well to a place you don't know at all. And then you have that experience of discovering it. I suppose one of the most, bizarre things was I remember, shopping, as a kid, you could go into a shop in Belfast and you could actually play with the toys, and that was completely unheard of in Georgia. And the other thing I remember really well was going to school in Belfast and seeing how colourful the classrooms were, and the fact that you kind of weren't freezing at your desk while the teacher was teaching you something. So it was just little things like that, really. I think at that time in Northern Ireland there wasn't many immigrants. Not many people had been there, so they were more sort of curious about where I was from than hostile or anything like that, and because of that I loved Belfast.
Okay, we're going to take another piece of music and then we'll be back talking about what happened next and when you got into the music and when you knew this is what you wanted to do. What would you like to play next from either your first or second album?
Let's go for My Aphrodisiac Is You. That's a really great track that Mike Batt wrote, my producer, and I remember when I first heard it just loving it because the lyrics I thought were so funny.
Talking to her about a fascinating rise to fame, and that must be difficult, going from being virtually a nobody 3 years ago to everybody knowing your name. How are you dealing with that?
it's I suppose it's quite bizarre, but the good thing is I can still maintain my privacy quite well when I'm, I suppose when I'm not working, and I think that's quite important to maintain that, because if you're going to be a writer, I do think you have to sort of be on the same level with everyone, and if half of your life you spend sort of being recognised and not being able to have proper conversations, normal conversations with people, then I think your creativity is sort of restricted in some sense. So it's good to still have my privacy.
You seem incredibly grounded, and you don't seem to be affected by what's going on outside of this room. The fact that there's 3,000 seats waiting to be filled, there's a show ready to be performed. I mean, are you not showbiz at all?
It depends what you call showbiz, if you ask me some specific questions.
Well, I mean, showbiz pals, for example. Have you got a phone full of celebrity names?
Not really. I mean, all my friends are the same friends I had 2-3 years ago, and they're absolutely the best. So I like hanging out with them.
Okay, let's talk about what happened next. So we're now in Belfast, and you've lived there a while. You seem to be settling in well. When did you first discover that you had an ability for music, let alone an ability to fill a 4,000-seater venue?
I think it wasn't actually until I moved to England when I was about 15, 16. I mean, I don't know. I started writing at 15 and started getting into loads of amazing artists, but it wasn't until I went to the Brit School where I studied music, BTEC and A-level. And the good thing about that particular course was that it covered everything in music. So it didn't just cover the fun sort of performing bits, it covered music theory, music history, music technology, music business. And I found that side of it fascinating as well. And I think it was during that, when we were doing gigs, I was just enjoying it and loving it. And I'd worked with quite a few different projects and with various different producers before I met Mike. So, as I was doing that, I was kind of thinking, I like this, and maybe I'm not as bad as I thought I was.
What turns you on the most? Is it the writing of the music or the performing of it, or both?
I would say definitely both. I mean, writing and singing your own songs is very different to singing other people's songs. And what's interesting is I do find both just as creative as each other, which is quite an odd viewpoint, because a lot of people think, when you write your own songs, that's much more creative than singing someone else's songs. But I think it's so much harder to put a lot of you into someone else's song, that if it's achieved and done well, I think that can be an even greater achievement than writing your own song and singing it, because there's nothing easier than that. You can't get it wrong because it's never been done before.
I'm curious to find out about your writing and how you do it and the process you go through. We'll talk about that in a moment, but first let's talk about Mike Batt, because if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be sat here now, really, would you?
No, not really. I mean, the records that I've made have been a collaboration between me and him, and we're two musical collaborators. And he's an absolutely incredible person, because not only is he creatively outstanding, but as my manager, because he's a musician, he completely understands what stuff you can do and what stuff you shouldn't do. That's unnecessary. That's just plain. That you're just trying to get famous or something like that. And I told him from the beginning that wasn't really what I was into.
My name's Alex Belfield, and I want to talk about that first meeting with Mike Batt. Was it as simple then as he came in, he saw you, he thought you were going to be a great big whopping star, and the next minute you're bringing out #1 selling albums?
Of course not. No, I mean, there's all the dodgy bits that they don't talk about. I mean, it was hard because, as I said before, Mike wasn't the first one that we used to have people coming in every week from the music industry. Some great people like Mike, but then some really dodgy people as well. So, I ended up doing various strange things, strange musical projects. I mean, they were all good for experience. So you have all of that. And then after we got together with Mike, it wasn't like, he never said, hey, I'm going to make you, really famous and you're going to sell loads of records. We just started improvising and getting into the studio and recording stuff, and then at the same time tried to get a record deal. And that turned out to be really hard. It was quite hard to deal with, because I found a lot of record companies took an initial really good interest, very enthusiastic, very excited, and then they never call you back. So that was pretty hectic. And then when we decided to release it on the independent label, it was very tough to get any sort of promotion or any kind of radio plays. So it's been pretty hard, but it's been pretty good too.
The first time he met you, did he know that you were the one?
I have no idea. I mean, he heard a song and he seemed to like it, and he liked the way I sang. And I think, maybe an element, some of it he perhaps did, but I think the good thing in the relationship is how it has grown. And I think the more we work together, the more we understand each other and see what directions we both want to go in.
It must be a great compliment for you writing with a man who's been writing for 40 years and had tremendous success.
Well, it is, although we don't actually write together because he is a brilliant songwriter. And he's not good at co-writing, and neither am I. I do find the process quite personal. But I am very sort of flattered the fact that, he does want to work with me as a collaborator. And he'll always be, he's very good at giving an opinion as well. If I've written a song, he's very honest, and he'll say that's really crap or that's really great. And the great thing is that I can say the same to him. So we end up, hopefully, by both of us being perfectionists and very honest with each other, we end up having very high quality of work.
Okay, we'll take another piece of music and then we'll talk about your writing process, how you think of what you come up with, because that's odd to me. I don't do that. What would you like to play next from either your first or second album?
Well, I'd probably like to pick, let me think. I Cried For You. This is a song that, it's a story about someone else. They told me a story which inspired me a lot, and so I decided to write this song.
And I want to talk to you now about your writing process. Is it as simple as you get lyrics and then you get the music, or vice versa? How does it work for you?
See, that's always just, it's you're looking at it too simply. You don't go words come first or the lyrics come first. Sometimes it starts with an idea, and the idea could be lyrical or it could be melody based, but you don't kind of write the melody, and you don't finish a song and just write the melody. How that particular one was written was, I had the melody of the chorus just sort of came to me. I think I was mucking around on the guitar and I suddenly sung this, I had these chords and suddenly this melody came out, but that was it. I just had this melody that had no words. I had no idea what the song was going to be about. I didn't have any verse melody or bridge melody, and it was just there. I left it because, sometimes you just can't force things. And then over the next year, that song that we just heard did take quite a long time to write. It took about a year to write. But that was because every little part of it kind of came together one by one. And I think what I wrote next was the melody for the verses. But I started at the same time writing some of the lyrics for the chorus, but still not knowing what the song was about. And then I lived with that for about 9 months, and I remember that was when I met this man in Norway. He was on a TV show, a person called Mike Batt, and he told me the story, which I reckon was probably true. And I wanted to write a song about that story, and I remembered that I'd had this melody and lyrics that kind of seemed to fit, and I suddenly realised that was what that song was about, and I was able to finish it knowing, what it was about.
You said earlier the melody came to me. Where do you think it's coming from? God or your creative brain? I mean, how do you come to terms with these melodies just coming in your head?
I don't know where it comes from. If I did, I would probably like for it to come a bit more. That's the $1 million question. I don't know. It just, I don't know what to say really. You kind of, you're there 1 minute and the next minute you're singing something, and that's it.
I presume your show isn't about the spectacular of the lights and everything. It is absolutely about the music, and you're just as happy with you and a guitar as you are 50 people behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try to get a bit of variety on the show. So there are numbers where, I had a really great illustrator actually do some paintings for one of the songs. So we've got that, that's quite an up-tempo number and the whole band is in, but there are also other songs where I just sing with the guitar on my own. So I like that sort of difference.
And international support as well, which is quite odd that when somebody comes out, big stars are willing to say, I like this person. And you've certainly had that with Wogan and Parkinson, who really championed your cause and probably made you the big star in the UK that you are today.
It was pretty amazing to have both Terry Wogan's show, whose producer is Paul Walters, who is the one that picked all the songs, and also Parkinson, because at the beginning, we were on a small independent record company, and I still am. It was pretty much impossible to get any kind of radio play or any TV play, because when you don't have that big machine behind you of a big record company, people just don't want to know. And so to have had one of the only few remaining radio DJs who actually get to play what they want instead of having to play playlists, because of that, they liked my stuff and they were able to play it. So, I mean, yeah, if it wasn't for them, I definitely wouldn't be here today.
Tell me what that feeling's like the first time you switch on the radio and by accident you hear your song.
Actually, it can be quite shocking and a bit sort of, you get a bit embarrassed and then you turn it off if you're with someone. But I don't know, it can be quite special. I remember the first time I heard my song on the radio I was in an airport, and I couldn't actually, there's no radio waves in an airport because obviously it screws up with the plane system. And we had to ring up my mum, who was listening to the radio. So she put the mobile up to the radio, and I was hearing it on the phone, on the radio. So that was pretty special. That was pretty cool.
What is the feeling like knowing that people are going to pay money to see you? Because that's something quite different. You can bring a CD out and some people might buy it, some people might not. But the fact that people are going to leave their homes, it's going to cost them money, and then they're going to pay good money to see you perform. How much of a compliment is that?
I suppose it's a big compliment, but I've never actually thought about it that way. I've never gone, God, people are coming to pay this much to see me, because, you just kind of, you do the gigs and you see people kind of enjoying themselves, and, different people have different sort of ways of enjoying the music. And that's it, you think about that. You don't start thinking about money, and things like that, I suppose. But I suppose it is incredible when people do want to come and see you live. That's why I always think it's important that the live gigs are just as good, if not they should be better than the record, because they have to get that something extra special.
It's reiterated about 5 million times in your PR and press release stuff that it doesn't matter to you whether you're in 4,000-seater venues or a 3-seater pub somewhere, because it's just about the music. Presumably, it can actually be better if it's a smaller venue because it's more intimate for you.
Sometimes it can be, but then looking back over the last 2 years, some of the best gigs I've had have been in front of sort of 5,000, 10,000 people, because the energy when you have a crowd like that can be absolutely amazing. And as long as you reach, the people way at the back, then it really works.
How do you deal with your fans? Do you like them? I mean, do you welcome them in? Do you have websites and fan clubs? I mean, how do you deal with it? Different stars deal with it in different ways. Some won't talk to them, some love to talk to them. I
think it's important to, if it wasn't for your fans, then you wouldn't be here. And it's important to appreciate that. I think, I love the fact that they've gone out and bought the records. And if I were ever, when I do meet a fan, I feel like, I kind of owe them something. So it's just nice to be like a normal person and chat to them.
What is the Katie Melua tour like? Do you enjoy it? Is it a bit intimidating? Do you get sick of the travelling? How do you feel about touring?
I do love touring, actually. I mean, it is brilliant, and the band and the crew that I work with are just amazing. They're all so friendly and just all are really hardworking, and we do have a really good laugh on tour, so I enjoy it a lot.
Do you have a decision as to who plays in the band, for example?
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole band has to click, so I think that's a very important decision. I don't think anyone can work when you're talking about music and you're talking about creativity. I don't think anyone can work with someone they don't like. It has to be, everyone in the band has to kind of like everyone else.
Your new CD's been a huge success again around the world, and it's very different in sound. What are you? Are you a pop star? It's kind of a bit classical because your voice is so pure, and I just heard you rehearsing less than an hour ago. You never miss a note, and it's kind of that perfect sound. What kind of singer are you, and what kind of sound is your music?
I don't know. I suppose I've always found it quite hard to define, but I find if you were to ask me only use one word to describe it, I'd say probably acoustic music, with influences of jazz, blues and folk, and maybe also old pop songs as well.
Where do you go from here?
Hopefully to many places. I really feel like I'm not yet at where I would like to be, musically speaking, creatively speaking. There's still many more things I need to get better at. I mean, I'm really happy with everything I've done so far, but I need to improve on many things, and hopefully I can do that.
Where do you want to be?
Well, just to continue making music and to do things that I suppose really challenge myself, both creatively speaking, in terms of singing, in terms of writing songs, in terms of collaborations. So, and in a sense, I do think it's important to kind of just let life take you where it's going to take you. You can't sort of, I'm not one of those people that have planned the next 10 years, day to day. I do think it's important to just have fun and see what happens.
Do you intend to stick by this original writing idea opposed to doing covers? I mean, are we ever going to find, Katie Melua sings Kate Bush or something like that?
Do you know what? You never know. Tomorrow I might wake up and suddenly be inspired to do a Katie Bush cover,
Yeah.
So you just never know.
You could do maybe a Best of Dusty Springfield or something like that. It'd be marvellous. Listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and your success really is unheard of around the world. The numbers speak for themselves. 3 million sold worldwide of your first album, and that really is crazy. I mean, the number of songs being sold on CD now is nothing because of the internet. I mean, that must bother you as well. How do you feel as an artist with people getting stuff off the internet and not paying for it?
Well, it can be quite frustrating because, I mean, maybe not for me because I'm, relatively well off and, I don't need to complain, but there are, artists out there, up and coming artists who do need the money. And what often happens is if the record company doesn't get, if they don't recoup properly and they don't get the right money, it's the poorer artists, the newer artists that struggle with it the most, and that's kind of unfair. So I hope that the legal ways of downloading, I actually think the internet is amazing. I love the fact that I can suddenly think of a song and go on the web and listen to it instantly and have the words and have the chords straight away, which it's an amazing tool, and hopefully people will start paying for it.
It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and we're going to end with my favourite, which is The Closest Thing to Crazy. Now, this song, I think, is one of those that will be around in 100 years' time, because it's a classic already. Does that sound odd to you? But do you know what I mean? It's one of those that already feels like it's been there for 40 years.
It doesn't sound odd to me because I remember when I first heard it, I thought the exact same thing. It was a song that Mike had written 10 years ago as a solo artist, and I remember hearing it thinking, God, this is such a great song. And I said, we've got to record it. He was like, really? Are you sure? I think it's too slow. And I was like, no, we have to record it. So we did, and that was that.
You're about to go on stage and entertain 4,000 people. How do you feel now? You seem so relaxed. I can't believe that you've got to go and entertain all these people and you're sat here wasting your time talking to me.
I'm not wasting my time, am I? No, I mean, it's, as you get nearer to the gig, you get more and more excited, but I'm pretty hungry at the moment, so dinner's coming up, so I'm a bit excited about that.
What will that be, Big Mac or?
Not quite, no. Probably a lovely roast.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that a bit filling before you go on stage?
Sometimes it is, so I don't have too big a portion, but it's always delicious, I know that.
Small portions, there's the key. All right, Katie Melua, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thanks a lot, lovely to talk to you.